Alrighty, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the episode number 0 of GameSense. My name is Francis O'Rourke. Joining me are my three other lovely hosts tonight. We've got Steve Canup from Team 190. We've got Matt Stark, most recently of Team 174, and Dave McLaughlin. He's on Team 1983. And today's kickoff. Woo! Pretty hyped about that.
Hey,
I'm happy to see Destination Deep Space. I'm excited to see the new game, and we're just going to kind of talk about the game. We're going to talk with people in the chat, see what's up, because basically we like talking about robots and want to do it here. Couple of quick things to say first. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Symbotic. Check them out at symbotic.com. They make automated warehouses. They are an employee, like multiple members of RoboSports Network work there. They're a great company, and they let us do what we do, so check them out on the internet, symbotic.com. Also, one last thing is we sometimes have some strong takes. If you don't like what we have to say, go out there and prove us wrong. It's more fun when you do, because we don't take ourselves too seriously anyway. All right, so let's get started. So I think the first thing we're going to talk about is the Sandstorm, because that's like the biggest change by far to what we would expect for a normal FRC game. Guys, what are your thoughts on the Sandstorm? Because this is kind of the thing that makes people just go, what? At the start.
Presented by Darude?
Yes.
Yes.
Sandstorm, presented by the Darude Company. Yes, of course.
Presented by the Darude Company.
Yes.
Yeah. What song is this? I think it's super interesting. I'm worried that it's going to break.
It's going to break?
Yeah, dude.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like, I don't know. You remember the hot goals? Like, what if the
yeah.
Sandstorm doesn't end till like 5 seconds into the match?
Well, hopefully it'll be even, I guess, right?
I mean, I guess so. That's kind of my big concern out of the gate. But I do like that they're kind of shaking things up.
Yeah, it's cool to be different. I'll give you that for sure. I don't know. I'm how do I say this? I'm disappointed, I guess, is my biggest thing. Right?
All right. I feel it.
And it's not because I'm afraid it's not going to work. But Boltman, I agree with you. I wish that we could pound on the glass, because it's kind of Team 190's thing we've been doing for a while.
Yeah.
But my bigger thing is that I really like autonomous mode, and this is an autonomous mode. It's driver control mode, but more different, basically, right? Like that's basically what it is. It's like if you're a top tier team, most of your robot functions are automated. Now you just have to see with a camera for 15 seconds, which you can do if you practice it well enough. But I think that it's not autonomous, right? I don't know. That's just my thought.
I mean, that's interesting. Do you think that there will be a significant portion of teams that do a true autonomous where they're not driving at all? Or do you think most everyone is going to use a camera and drive that thing around?
My gut reaction, so from coming from a middle to lower resource team, my gut reaction would tell me I would stick with autonomous. My kids knew how to program autonomous. My mentors knew how to teach them that. And with autonomous, you can program it to be fairly consistent. We never dealt with a webcam on our robot. So to try and do that and then be able to have the kids practice that, I think it'd be a difficult thing to do. I don't know. I think we would have chosen to go with auto instead.
Well, I think we're likely to see some teams out there that have pretty autonomous Sandstorm modes that have like driver kickouts, or have just sort of driver inputs to, oh, hey, well, let's just stop. Like the tests that some of the off seasons did with the A stop. It's like, all right, this is going to get us into trouble. We'll just stop the robot here. Or, hey, we were going to go do this thing. It looks like we can just do something slightly different. So we'll just have kind of two options, because we had last year with Power Up, you had, hey, if you're checking all these things, then you should be able to go to the correct side of the scale, and then if the switch isn't on the same side, then you do a different thing. Now you can kind of do that with your kids in the driver's seat. And to answer Ben's question on the stream, no, Karthik can't kick the glass because the robots are in the way. You've forgotten what the field looks like. So the beginning of this match, I think, feels quite different from last year with the I'm going to keep calling it autonomous mode. But during the Sandstorm, one of the improvements that I see this year compared to last year is there isn't a ranking point associated with driving forward. So you aren't going to have teams who all they do at competition is program other teams' robots to drive forward or to like help them to do this, which I feel, I don't know. I think we got to like the logical endpoint of that last year.
And another part that's different this year is your robots start on one of the platforms. So even if you program autonomous mode, right off the bat, you have to consistently get off of something. So to be able to program that in whatever your autonomous mode would be versus just driving off of it and then watching your webcam, it'll be interesting to see how that functions.
It's a massive change this year, especially considering the fact that we now have an autonomous award this year. They've extended the Ford Autonomous Award to every single event as opposed to just the World Championship. Andy Baker says hi, by the way. Just finished a recording with him.
And
earlier.
Before we go too further, welcome everybody to Ruth. Ruth joined the call. It threw everybody's faces out of whack, which is okay, but I'll get that right back in a second. Keep going, guys.
And I think there's a lot of, to me, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening during the Sandstorm. The idea of these preloaded cargo and then them being released right at the end. So you have to, in the course of this autonomous teleoperator mode, stop them from doing something that they're going to do. This sort of, what was that game with the little pieces that you put in and the timer and then it would pop out?
Yeah, dude.
I'm thinking of that.
What is that game?
Like planning their strategy.
Trouble?
Like,
no, is it Trouble, right?
No.
Pop-O-Matic
I don't think
Trouble.
it's Trouble.
No, wait. What is it?
It's not Pop-O-Matic Trouble. No, but I'm anticipating these teams.
I wish it was.
Now they're driving. They can't see. They can only see with their camera, and they're just hoping that their partners are also looking at their camera to get those two balls, and then the whole audience is reacting to what's happening. So I want for one match for the audience to give like a big, oh no, a robot tipped over, oh, and then for the curtains to come up and like everybody's fine.
Thank you to Jacob Troy for perfection. That was the correct answer. So you win. I don't know. You're a mod.
25
No, I don't
points.
know. Yes, 50 points to Gryffindor for you. Thank you. Good job, man.
It's an interesting dynamic with the drive team, though, because the audience can and will react, but they have no idea. Besides what their cameras are telling them, like they don't have any idea. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm curious too with the drive team and the refs. Like, how serious are they going to be watching right down the line to see if you peek over through the human player zones and all that? Like,
I think they'll be dead serious about it.
Yeah, referees used to have that as a higher point of emphasis to check the line, and now this year that the refs aren't doing live scoring during autonomous, I imagine that's going to be something that they're going to be paying attention to.
Yeah, it's important to note this year two things with the score. Nothing counts until the very end of the match, so it's really just going to be a status check, kind of like 2007. I think is the last year we really had something like that. No, 2015. You didn't have a solid score until the end of the match. But looking at explicitly at scores and autonomous, it's a swing of 12 points whether you put the null hatches on or not, because there are 6 null hatches that you can choose to put on during the auto, and that's going to make sure that your cargo doesn't fall out whether or not you score it. But now that's 12 points you can't get by placing regular hatches.
Right, that's true. That's certainly true. I mean, my bigger thing, and I know I'm kind of going backwards from where we were before, but I was busy moving people around in digital space, is my strategy for this is to, I know that you guys all said make autonomous modes. My strategy is to not make autonomous mode. Right, my strategy is to put a camera on my robot and drive my robot for 15 seconds, and have a lot of automated features on my robot. Right, like have a thing that can like pull a trigger, have the camera snap to center on 2 pieces of tape, and line up to put a patch panel on. Right, or have the camera track onto the goal and shoot the ball into the goal or whatever into the portal on the thing. And something to go what you were saying. there are a lot of venues that have the video for like the audience display on the ends of the field, right? Like I know that your regional had that last year, Matt. I know that most New England districts have that. I know that a lot of Seattle or PNW districts have that too. And if you do that, I think you end up potentially giving one alliance an advantage, which is not, I don't think it's like going to make or break the whole event, but it's kind of like weird to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that point, Francis. There's a point where you want to code in an entire autonomous operation. I also want to have an entire button board where I can hit a button that's like drive forward for, this distance and, line up with the camera and score on the second level of the rocket. There's so much you can do this year with really customizing that sequence, especially because you can control it.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Hey, what do you guys think? Any other thoughts on auto mode, on Sandstorm mode?
I wanted to circle back quick to your thought on, venues. Yeah. Those giant screens that are at some of them and where they're placed, like the drive team can quick glance over there. Like, how do you ref that or not ref that? Like I don't know. It's going to make for some interesting, argument back and forth of where I want to be and do I want to be on the number 2 alliance because the number 2 alliance gets a better field view than the number 1 alliance would, and like all that kind of stuff. Like, see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm making too much of it. Maybe it's just my thoughts. Oh, nope. We lost Dave. Okay. Dave's been replaced by a real spaceman himself. So with what is it?
No, it's your Brule pick.
Yeah, your Brule pick is up right now in Discord. So
yeah, Brule's rule says don't peek around the corner during the sandstorm. It's big bad news.
Okay, so one of the things I
just checking. Is my connection better? I was having a lot of trouble there. Are we Gucci now?
You're better. Yes.
Okay, cool.
In the whole of Destination Deep Space, trying to look at the game, last year I think I had a good handle early on what the game would look like, but this year I think I can only see how early matches will play out. This is one where I'm not sure what higher levels of play look like, because this game I think could turn into a 2011 style thing where all of the requisite scores are in, and then you're just kind of building small scores on top of that, or more like Stronghold, which people have compared it to. But like almost everything that mattered in early weeks was like this lowest level of get the ranking points, and then by the time you get to the championships, the things that differentiated alliances was just how many balls you could score in the highest goal. But I think I see what it looks like at lower levels. Teams are just going to try to do the ranking point things as hard as they can and put balls in low places otherwise.
Yeah. My hot take, we're going to see all hatches and all cargos scored in at least one match by one alliance by the end of week 3.
I mean,
it's my hot take. I called it in 16.
When you say one, you mean in a rocket or in the entire field?
Both rockets and the entire cargo ship.
By week 3?
By the end of week 3.
She also has written it down in the Blue Alliance blog article today too, so it's on record as she did say it. I tend to agree. It'll be interesting because the game, it seems fairly simple, right, from an initial standpoint of what you need to do. And it seems like it's going to be a matter of how fast can you do these cycles of getting these 2 objects where they need to go, and then doing, like Steve said, the minute little things at the end. Can I get up to that highest platform, or do I just get to the second one? Like doing those things, and who can do that? So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if that plays out like you think.
I'm gonna be honest, Ruth. I think that's not just a hot take. That's like a 5-alarm, like number 11 chili take as far as temperature is concerned. Like I will have an equally hot take. Perhaps there will never be a match where every single hole, every single hatch, and every single ball is scored. I think that that's too many cycles for any alliance of 3 robots to do. I mean, I also thought that people would score a lot fewer cubes in the scale during power up, at least the initial weeks. And Steve reminded me of that a lot during the season, a lot after the season, multiple times today already. So I don't. Maybe I'm also wrong, but I don't know. I think that it's. I don't know. I don't really believe that most teams are going to score that much that frequently, just because of like.
It's only 36 actions.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, the best robots. I mean, like 254 last year scored how many cubes in their best matches? 12.
I actually have no idea.
Right. I think it's
never something that I tracked.
I mean, it's hard to tell because 254 was really good about not scoring cubes when they were ahead, right? They would like win the scale and walk away, right? So it's kind of hard to tell. But like 12 seems like the max. So if you get 254s on a field, you get a full field. I don't know. My initial take is that that's too many. But I mean, it's not impossible. This game has a ceiling, not necessarily the same kind of ceiling as it had last year, but a ceiling for sure. You know.
Do you think that like a hard ceiling like that is like a good thing for a game to have? Just kind of in general. That was like one of the things I was kind of disappointed with when I saw this game, is that there was like a max score, right?
Yeah. I mean, last year had
it's
that
a max. Well, I mean, yes, but the max score isn't really. I mean, unless I'm looking at this wrong, your max score isn't really affected by what your opponent does, and I think that like that might cause there to be very little interaction between the alliances during the game. Like, I can't think of a good reason for me to go to the other side of the field if I'm not going to play some defense or something like that. Like, what do I need to go over there for?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're stealing a game object, I would agree. And since the rule says there's only one defensive robot, like you'd have to plan that out with your alliance. Okay, I'm going to go over and grab this one, and if they're just over that line, that's hard to see. Like you're getting a penalty, so it's going to be hard.
It's interesting. Like, and I don't know. Like, maybe I'm missing something because we've had this game for like, I don't know, not that many hours. But it seems like it could play. Like it could play like 2015, where the alliances just do their own thing, and yeah, this year there's no wall in the middle, but like, is there really any big incentive for me to interact with the other alliance?
It's my kind of game. No, I think one other restriction from going and stealing a game piece on the other side is you can't extend past your frame perimeter when you're on the other side. But what I see in especially early weeks. Interaction scoring wise in the playoffs is, sure, you want to put hatches up first so that the cargo will stay in, but at a certain point you have to recognize where your opponent's alliance is, and you might have to just, instead of trying to do a hatch and a cargo and a hatch and a cargo, you just need points, and you have to start filling them. So either your strategy initially is not either, but your strategy initially might be, we're going to put as many hatches as we can up first and then fill in with cargo, because that's how you will eventually be good enough to fill everything. Or you're trying to do piecemeal cycles, and at some point during the match you're going to have to make that decision of, we need to put the 3 points in and not just go to the next 2 points.
Yeah, it leads me to wonder, Steve, are we going to see a lot of robots that do both hatches and cargo, or will we see specialty robots that allow for this quick little bot that just quick puts the cargoes on, and then the I'm forgetting the name of the balls again already. But then the robot that maybe goes and plays his defense on the other side, then come back and start worrying about those. I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet, and that's probably a little early for teams to be doing too. But I wonder if we'll see more robots that do both, or specialty robots that do one or the other.
My initial sense is that teams are going to be riding high on their robot success of last year. Almost not everybody, but it was a much higher level of robot competence last year than we've seen even in previous years, as all teams have gotten better at building robots. But I think a lot of teams are going to be trying to control both of these objects. So they're going to try to be this independent team and not the one that just puts up hatches, and they know that eventually they'll get somebody who's really good with cargo that can pair well with them. I think we're going to see a lot of dual wielders.
Yep. That's what my thought is as well. I mean, if I were in a vacuum, not to make a space joke. I mean, we had plenty of space puns today, but in a vacuum, I would make a robot that does both over trying to be a specialist. And I think a lot of teams will try that as well. And I think that that's not the worst plan, right? But if you are going to specialize, I think you specialize in hatches first, because that's the limiting factor for any other scoring. You got to put your hatch on before you can get your cargo, which is the ball. So if you don't get the hatch, you don't get the ball points no matter what. So I think that if you had to pick one, you got to pick hatches, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, just don't be the team that says we don't need no stinking hatches.
Do you think that handling the hatches is more difficult than handling the cargo?
I think we're going to see a lot of suction cups this year.
Yes,
but there's a big hole in the middle.
I agree.
No,
I think you're both. I think you're both right. I think yes, you're going to see a lot more suction cups this year, but I also think that the hatch is more challenging than the ball, just because it's not a known solution. But even if you like, it's not impossible, right? I think that there are a lot of ways you can grab or manipulate that object without a suction cup, even, although a suction cup is probably the dumbest way, not dumbest, but like the stupidest, simplest way, right? I say stupid. I don't mean stupid.
You could say dumbest.
I know. I can't. I don't mean it.
I say dumbest.
I don't mean.
Would you rather say it's the most obvious solution?
Yes, there we go. I'm saying words that Ken Stafford would say. It's stupid simple. It's stupid simple. Just do it this, right?
I would say a suction cup is the second most obvious. I mean, why not just put a thing that's got hook on it, do the thing, and then you do the thing and you push off.
I mean, there's a robot in 3 days right now. We probably can't pull it up that fast, but all it does is it's a PVC tube that goes through the center with one pneumatic, and the one pneumatic makes it do this. So it just backs up with it already on it. It's going to be, I hope for teams, it's going to be an easy solution. I would think that it would be, but yeah, I see that being the specialty that people zone in on first to make sure they can handle that part.
It seems kind of analogous to like the gears from 2017, but I don't know if the difficulty of acquiring the gear, like with a little slot box, is the same as taking it out from the brushes. Like, I think teams might think it's easy and, just have like a little pneumatic thing, but I think that if people underestimate, we're going to see a lot of dropped hatch covers.
And Dave and Matt, you're right about that. Teams can overestimate it, and they can, or it could be this straightforward sort of thing. But Dave, you reminded me, I so badly don't want this to turn into 2017, where everybody said, "Hey, you really need to get gears first," to the point where nobody developed anything to do the rest of the game. And so, great, now we have a whole bunch of people who can put hatches on, and that's the whole game. I love it.
Right. And in that year, you didn't need the fuel because whoever did the gears the quickest for most events was fine. And then finally, higher levels of play, they were like, oh, crap, we can do this all. Now we need to do something else. I think this game is kind of in the middle where you're going to fill hatches fast enough in earlier events. Hey, Andy Baker, good to see you, buddy. You're going to be able to do the hatches quick enough that the balls are going to become more of a priority sooner in the season.
That's my hope too, but I'm so worried that it happens because of like watching it happen during 2017.
Yeah.
And there's so much more cool stuff in this game. Like, all right, so the ranking points are brilliant this year. They're something that I've always wanted. There are more available places to get ranking points than then you need to get it. Like, you just fill one rocket, and that is a ranking point, and there's another rocket over there. And you need 15 points, 15 of the HAB climb points to get it, and there are 36 possible HAB climb points. So I think we're not going to run into the now I don't care about ranking points anymore situation that you get in some games when you get to the playoffs, because you can build off ranking points. Every ranking point up to now in previous games was the most that you could get out of that part of the game.
I think there were a lot of lesson learned on that specifically from 2016 and from 2018. You ran into issues last year where a team was completely incapacitated. You couldn't get that levitate, and you couldn't get multiple robots on the climb. There were just too many failure points to get that perfect thing. You have the ability this year to be able to get the hub ranking point with 2 robots. If you get a level 3 and a level 1 or a level 2 robot, you've got 2 chances at a tower or at a rocket ship. You only had 1 chance at the tower, and that could go back up on you.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, real quick, while we're kind of talking about ranking points, someone in the chat, BK Lewitt 190 asked, no relation. I don't know. He asked if you think ramps are going to be back to get that ranking point.
So in the Blue Alliance blog Slack, our article today, I brought that up, and I actually linked the 190. Now that we're bringing up team numbers, the 190 video that Steve had done, I think it was last year, and I think it's possible, but I did some quick math today with Pythagorean theorem, and that's got to be one steep ramp. So that a robot could climb up. I don't know. It'll maybe. I mean, that robot would be the lowest level at the 3 points, and then you would be able to get up the person up to the 12 points. So you would get your ranking point with that. I don't know. It's going to take some design finagling to get it to work.
I look at how easy teams made like their ramps last year. Like, drive over something that's flat, drive up a 4-inch little ramp and drive onto our thing. And how many teams couldn't do that? Like, I think the idea of a ramp is cool, like working with your alliance to get the super bonus. But in practice, it's just not something that a lot of drive teams are good at, because it's not something you have to do to play the game. It's like a separate skill. And if you don't have the foresight to like build your own ramp and practice driving up it, it's something that's difficult to build skill in doing. So I think it's like a cool idea, but I think if we see a lot of ramps, we're going to see a lot of people who built ramps disappointed that people can't drive up them.
Yeah, so you could do ramps. I think you're probably looking at something that's 30 to 45 degrees if you want to drive straight all the way up, and that's
steep.
The show is not sponsored by AndyMark. I am not speaking as an AndyMark employee. There are products out there that can get you up a ramp that's steep. You got to find them. You got to know what you're doing.
Oh, like the West Coast Products wheels, right? Those new... No, I'm just kidding. No, but yes, I know. Like the Raptor, but it's true. Right? And you're also, having been in your office recently, I know that you're kind of looking directly at one from your desk right now, basically, right?
No, that's actually up with the Average Joe's.
Oh, okay, all right.
They were doing some testing with that using the Neos, and we lent them the drivetrain with the black HDPE tread on it, or the black PLA rather. I think what we're more likely to see rather than ramps is a return of the forklift from last year. It was a really successful solution. You can do it with a relatively slow profile. And I think it's G25 is the rule you want to look at, which doesn't exclude you for poking out the bottom of your robot.
Oh, yes. They made the change about weird legal bumper height minutia of, well, now my bumpers are higher because there's stuff under where my wheels would be and whatever.
Yeah,
I am intrigued by this Endgame because we haven't seen an analog to this in many, many years, and even then, it isn't particularly close.
What do you mean? What do you mean by analog?
But like the 2004 platform, you had these different flat planes at different heights, but these are big jumps to get over. And so I wonder if teams are going to learn. One of the lessons from the forklifts last year was like Big Bad Bob up here that did very, very well, and 195, the Cyber Knights both developed their buddy climb forklift system after they'd competed twice. And so I wonder if teams are going to try to figure out just how to get themselves up there first and leave some space for something. Because if you get yourself up there first in the early weeks, then you need somebody to drive up on the ramp that already exists and you get the ranking point. But if you want to get the big points that separate the teams at the highest levels, then you might need to consider these other ways of getting robots up there. But it might be a piecemeal solution, which we've seen more and more as the years have gone on.
I agree with you 100% on that, Steve. I think during districts and regionals, we're not going to necessarily see multiple third level climbs, multiple robots climbing at the third level in a single match. I think as we get to district championship play and as we get to eliminations on each of the divisions at the World Championships and definitely on Einstein, we'll definitely see that be a requirement to be able to lift at least one other robot in some of those divisions to get out to Einstein.
Well, but that brings up the other question, like when you're at the championship and at these high-level events, do you need that, right? Because if you can get, I mean, I guess it's points, right? Points is points, right? Which is good, I should say, right? But I don't know. I'm still not completely certain I buy into the limit that everyone's going to score so many points that you're going to have to, it's going to come down to the end game every time, right? I still think that there's lots of points to be scored on the cargo ships, or even the other rocket.
I'm going to point out, Boltman 2019 just said in chat, this is a hotter take than mine earlier, there will be a triple level 3 by week 4.
All right, Boltman. Well,
go do it.
Yeah, go out there and prove us wrong, my man.
No, what's that? Yeah,
yeah.
Nothing particular against you, my man, but. I mean, I think that a triple level 3 climb is even. I mean, it would be dope as heck to do it, I guess, right? But like, not to be like from a person who's on a team where our whole strategy was building ramps and putting robots on them. It was well over a decade ago, right? So things may be better now. But in a game where you were designed to drive on your partner, and they were designed to, the purpose of the game was they were going to lift you in the air. So many teams had so much trouble doing it. It was almost embarrassing. I was like, why does everybody have so much trouble driving at all? Like a whole regional, nobody climbed up our ramps practically because they couldn't drive. And by the next time we went, everybody was happy with it. But I don't know what I mean. It's one of those things that's really tough, right?
And something we forget, Francis, is this is at the end of the match when the kids are stressing out to the max. And a lot of it isn't the robots not able to. It's they have trouble seeing a far distance, which in this case, it's right in front of them. But still, you're looking at your robot driving at you, and then you're trying to adjust, and kids are freaking out because there's a few seconds left and all that. I kind of agree with Ruth. I think the forklift or robot drivetrain pushing itself down type design might end up coming up. Steve brought up 2004, and immediately in my head I thought of two teams: Wild Sting 111, which I don't know if we could find their video on YouTube, but
I'll take a look for it.
Wild Sting 111 had this awesome drivetrain thing where they pushed their whole drivetrain down, and each side individually went up and down. So they could push themselves up, bring one back up, go up, and then bring the other one back up. It was really cool to see. And the other one I thought of was Symbotics. I believe that was their first year. Symbotics 1114 also had a similar idea to Wild Sting. But both of those ideas I could see happening. Now, you have to take up a lot of real estate in your robot to be able to do that. But that's one way that you don't have to necessarily invert your robot, and you could get yourself up that high if you needed to.
And we shouldn't learn the wrong lessons from 2018's Endgame, because 2018's Endgame did end up mattering kind of only at the highest levels when it came to just getting the maximum number of points that anybody was really trying to get. But this year, the point value for the Endgame is so much higher relative to the other points that you can get during the game.
That's true.
Going up there by yourself is 12 points, and a cargo is worth 3 points, and a hatch is worth 2 points. And there aren't bonus points in autonomous. None of that. Like whoever calculated the maximum score to be 151 or 154, like 12 is a lot of those points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of the things that I absolutely love about this game, and there's so many things I love about this game, is that I think first got the point values for everything pretty much exactly right. I mean, the end game is weighted a little bit high, but that's part of why it's the end game. It can swing a match, right? And the point value for that in regards to everything else is I can't think of the word. It's appropriate for the level of difficulty for that task.
Yeah, this comes back to something that I've said before with if nobody does the end game this year, it will have been too hard. But it's worth a lot of points, and if teams do it, they will not talk about that it was too hard to do, because you just don't consider things that you did to be too hard. So whoever figures it out, or if individual teams figure it out, then they'll say, yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was worth it. But if teams don't do it, then it was too hard. That's the only measure of it.
It goes back to the fuel. A lot of teams right off the bat knew how many they had to try and accurately score to get a decent level of points, and just wrote it right off in the beginning. This one is not that way, because you need 3 balls scored to counteract the high climb. That could be significant in the end. And it's definitely something that teams will attack much sooner.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can also look at doing the math. And if you spend all the time getting a perfect triple climb, which is 36 points in the end game, you have to get 8 hatches and balls to beat that. So if it's kind of the perfect storm of who you've got in your match, assuming it's quals and you're against a team that, for lack of a better phrase, has a bunch of toasters on it, it might be worth it to devote your time to go and do the 36-point triple climb to level 3. It's all going to be about trade-offs, and in this situation, and in my mind, it doesn't make sense to plan and design for your first event that triple robot level 3 climb.
Yes, I'm with you there. I mean, I don't know. Man.
Well, because I'm thinking of, I think that you're right. To have the whole design completed for a triple level climb might get you into the same sort of issue that some teams had last year with their initial design for their buddy climb, which required like a lot of convolution of their robot. Maybe like they had an elevator that tipped, or they had all this extra stuff to do a third robot, and by the end they'd scrapped it because it just didn't end up being practical for this. But they had devoted a lot of in build season resources to developing this integrated system. And I think a lot of teams are going to go with hey, maybe we just wait for some sense of like what this game looks like, and let's make our robot work in other areas, and then we'll get this bonus.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Steve. I think a lot of teams are trending towards building practice spots or building additional practice spots. Teams that don't even have unbagged time, at least for the remainder of this year, while there's still a bag day and this whole thought concept is important. You've got stuff in your shop that you can mess around with and play around with and iterate and kind of do the whole 5-5-8 thing, where they build a completely different robot by their second event, which is almost a trope at this point. It'd be mind-blowing if they didn't.
Can I kind of break in there, though, real quick? I would not do what 5-5-8 does. I don't think anybody should do what 5-5-8 does, including, 5-5-8, like, they make it work because of the situation and how they build robots and their design philosophy and the resources they have. But I think planning to rebuild your robot from the scratch or significantly during the season is a surefire bet to having something go terribly wrong.
You were gonna say it.
What was I gonna say?
Nothing.
Okay. I don't know. It's risky. It's like, even I'm on 190, and even that sounds risky to me, right? Like being like, I'll just do the whole thing later again.
I think this is a good year. Last year was not a year to do a whole bunch of mechanical prototyping in the first week and a lot of mechanical analysis, because it's a cube that you can definitely lift with whatever you're trying to lift it with, and you pull it in with probably wheels. I don't know. You'll fit wheels in at some point. This year, you have to, if you want to figure out these things, you have to manipulate an object that is really weird compared to old objects. I'm talking about this kickball. No, the weird toroid thing. And you have to do an ascension challenge that I think probably unlike 2017, which seemed like, oh, this is like a new, really difficult and different way of climbing. You're not going to be able to just put some Velcro up there and yank and get yourself those 36 points. So this is a very different sort of mechanical challenge to last year if you're going for these game objects.
Yeah.
It's really weird. How do you shift your weight up there?
How about this? Do you shoot? Do you shoot the cargo into the goals? Dave?
I think you punch it.
Do I shoot?
Sorry.
Yeah, or just one shoot. What do you think? Do you think it's a good idea to shoot a ball, or do you think it's better to place it? What if we dump it? What if we shoot and dump? What if we shump it in there?
What if we shump it in there? That's a 2009 throwback. Thank you, Francis. I really appreciate that. Sorry for pinning you in that practice match. I think that shooting. I don't think it's super worth. I would probably place. And I think it's because of the hatches. It's pretty tough to shoot the hatch up there, and I think that
well, it's against the rules to do that, but
well, yeah, that's why it's super tough.
Yes.
But combining the ball, like a cargo scoring mechanism and your hatch scoring mechanism, I think is probably a good idea. And I think that kind of just gets rid of shooting by default.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I see a lot of low-centered robots that forklift their way up, and the same mechanism does both actions. It keeps a lot of your weight low, and it allows you to it's more accurate to place right high up than to try and shoot, and then have to go collect it, hope no one else stole it, all that kind of thing in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think if we saw shooters last year, we're going to see shooters this year, and the game pieces don't stay off the field; they get returned right back. So if you're that inaccurate, just sit there for a while. But if your priority is a really low center of gravity and not a whole bunch of expansion, you can get value out of those shooters. And with like a proper flywheel shooter, you dial in the different heights, and then you're kind of looking at, hey, we don't need this expanding robot. We can just have a nice little shooter and a robot that just does this.
But how many heights is it, right? Like it's a bunch, isn't it? It's not just
it's only
one
3.
or 2. Is it 3? I thought it's more
3.
than that.
So I think it's 4 because the center hole on the rocket is slightly higher than. Oh no, wait, no, I have no idea where the cargo thing is. That's part of it. But there are just the 3 places to put it in the cargo, unless you want to do the super secret strat of firing in the other hole because you've already got a plate, a hatch on the other side.
The precision strike.
The secret sauce.
Yeah, it's an even smaller hole that you're shooting through.
Yeah.
I think really going to be looking a lot more at people placing the balls in these holes, but I don't necessarily see them doing it with like a roller claw or anything like that. I think you're going to see something more along the lines of, a big wide roller, like we saw with a lot of collectors in 2016, and you're going to have a little pneumatic puncher like we saw in 2010, 2014. That's going to give you a quick jab to get it out, so you're not spending a lot of time trying to score in the goal.
And really quick, I just saw in the chat, Botman and Time Bomb 42 are having you have 2 conflicting ideas of how the rules work. One says you can shoot the hatch 2 feet. The other says you can't shoot it at all. And I got to tell you, you're both right, because the way the rules are written, The robot rules say that a robot cannot be designed to shoot a hatch more than 2 feet. But in the gameplay rules, you can't shoot a hatch at all. And if you do, it's a red card, right, Steve?
It's a red card.
It's a red card.
So in a practical sense, pretty much what you're seeing there is you definitely cannot shoot a hatch up. But if your release of your hatch has a little bit of force into it, the maximum force that you can put into it results in the hatch falling 2 feet out of your robot.
Right. So, for example, if you looked at like 10, yeah. Also, it's a good Q&A question. If you were like 1058, from 2016, where they would sort of exhale the gear out a little bit, right? When they would score, right? What is this?
Keep it rolling, cool. Man. Keep it rolling.
Yeah, it's fine. That's cool, but you can't. What you can't do is you can't like be like, all right, here we go, like catapult that stuff up there, right?
Can you make that noise again?
Which one? The
wow.
Oh, wow. That one. There you go.
Yeah,
Make that your ringtone if you want it. Aggressive placement. There we go. Yes, it's like aggressive negotiations, right? Yes. So my thought here is, so we kind of have a peculiar incentive with this game, and that is, so defending against ranking points is not a good idea from an in-match strategy standpoint, right? You will lose a match you try to defend a ranking point of, right? But if you're trying to if you've got like 2,000 level IQ here and you're trying to deny somebody the number 1 seed or something like that, or mess up something like that, or whatever, you're playing against the 14 and you decide you don't like them, whatever the case may be, you could try to. People have in the past tried to stop ranking points from happening. This year, you have to score a full rocket on one side of the field. So once you get like more than halfway or 2/3 of the way done with a rocket, that one defensive robot knows where you're going, and they can just camp there and stop you from scoring any more points, and also stop you from getting a ranking point. So I think that there is a case to be made that you want to have a shooter so that you can shoot the cargo above those robots. Sometimes.
Fair argument.
For
Francis,
it's tricky,
I'll take it one step further. You could back up to the cargo ship, get your bunkers stuck under it, and you have a spot that you can consistently shoot from.
Yeah, that's true as well.
So
my counter would be like, why wouldn't you just start playing defense before they put the last hatch up? Like, doesn't that just...
We can do that too.
There's a sweet spot where you can play defense, because if you touch their rocket in the last 20 seconds of the match, they get the ranking point.
Yeah,
and you get a technical foul, right?
You get something else,
yeah.
But it will no longer be an effective defense of the ranking point with under 20 seconds left. So there's a sweet spot, and so teams are going to have to get pretty good at. An alliance will somehow have to immediately recognize that this is an issue, and in less than the entire match fill up a rocket. So that might be some high level stuff, and we might see some really gritty defense matches in the early goings. Hooray.
Yeah.
I know you love defense, Steve, so but that's the other thing too, is that this is the first year, I mean, the whole the habitat zone is your whole end zone there is a safe zone, and you're only allowed one robot on the other side of the field. But there are no protected zones in the scoring areas this year at all, except in the last 20 seconds you can't touch it. That's the first time we've had that in a very long time. Do you think it works for this game? Because I think it kind of can work in this game without a safe zone, but it's like scary, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be so much easier to place and score the hatches this year. Like, that's going to be a drive-by tapping onto the the hook side of the hook and loop.
Play the song.
Gotta stay on brand.
It's going to be such a quick drive-by thing that it's not going to be an issue there. And really, opponent robots shouldn't be anywhere near the hatches, because if you dislodge a hatch, regardless of whether or not they finish the rocket or if it's on the cargo ship, they get a ranking point. It's insane. I mean, you should, if you're on defense and the other end of the field, you should never have anything out that can catch on to those hatches. But I wouldn't want to be caught next to one in case it accidentally fell because somebody hit the rocket too hard and it wasn't on hard enough.
That's true.
The outside of your robot is just a bunch of hook side and just collecting all over the place. This is my strategy. I don't understand why it's an issue.
What do I do with all these hatches?
I think that not having these really harsh protected zones is important to do in a game with a lot of obstructions and a lot of like centralized area of play, because then the game turns into 2011 where so much of the field was protected that these giant robots kind of lumbered around and couldn't get anywhere. And I understand being worried about that. So I think that with a theoretically decentralized scoring area on the field as it is, especially during playoffs, because you don't have as much incentive to just finish one rocket, that will prevent, I hope, some of the more degenerate base spot defense strategies.
Mm-hmm. Although, to be fair, parking in front of where you score the balls in a rocket is going to be incredibly frustrating to anybody outside of New England.
Well, I mean, even people in New England, right? Like, there's such a short circle that you can drive around to defend that rocket that it's you can't defend two faces at once. That's for sure, right? But you can.
You don't need to defend the hatches. Yeah, just prevent them from scoring the balls in there.
Well, or the hatches,
That's
right?
all you need.
Either one. I mean, like my thought is that whenever you play defense, you should be playing defense to win the match, right? It should not. Mm-hmm. You should never try to play defense to stop only a ranking point because it's silly. Like, don't worry about that. If you win the match, you win the match. That's what you mostly care about, right? Because.
Well, yeah, talking about defense, it's made me wonder if we're going to see a lot of game objects coming out of robots. It's fairly easy to, as far as we can tell, it's fairly easy to get hatches from the little brushes and pull it out, and it's fairly easy to acquire these kickball or dodgeball size balls and get them in your robot. But I think the defense and just bumping into each other, if you don't have firm grasp on them, you're going to have issues. They're going to end up on the ground. And what do we do about that? Like, will robots be designed to get off, to pick these things up off the ground, even though there's nowhere on the field you really get them off the ground, except the balls are next to the platforms on your side. Besides that, I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts on getting them off the floor?
Yeah, Anthony thinks that teams are going to undervalue ground pickups for hatches. Dave, to pick someone at random, what are your thoughts on hatches?
It seems super tough, like really hard to do, like reliably. And I think one of the things that makes it super tough is you're trying to see an object lying flat on the floor that's 3/16 of an inch thick from, like, I don't know, think about it, like 20 feet away, through plexiglass, and you're trying to bullseye a 6-inch hole. Like, if you're trying to pick it up with the hole, I mean, you could use the Velcro on the outside, I guess, but I'm worried about the Velcro wearing out over the course of an event, and not being as sticky as like the first matches. It seems like a really tough thing to do, and I don't know. It's difficult. Like, I'm having a tough time seeing where you get value from being able to pick them up.
Well, have you ever tried to pick up a playing card off the table, but it's not sticky, but it won't come up easily, and so you like hold it down and blow under it, and it like lifts it up?
Oh, so you're describing a blower collector? I don't know, like you blow air under the.
Yeah, so most of your robot is like a leaf blower.
Okay.
And then you have to like carefully hold down part of something, but not all of it.
Does that work as good if there's a big hole in the middle of the card?
I haven't tried it with holy playing cards.
Is that kind of the inverse of what you want to do in 2009 by creating the extra section under your robot?
Yes, exactly.
We're going way back.
Yes. It's all, which is 10 years ago.
It just seems
now.
like it seems super tough. And like, don't get me wrong, I think that if you can do it and you can do it well, there's probably value added, but I don't know if there's enough value added for extensive development during build.
I agree.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
What?
And
Because
my
we
only
haven't read the rules good enough yet. Are there extra hatch covers?
Define extra hatch covers.
like, can you
I guess
lose one and still
need a
get
total
the
of
ranking
how
point?
many on your alliance to get full point?
I think
There
that
are
think-
22 available to your alliance.
so I'm pretty sure from our team meeting earlier that you can drop 4 and still fill up your whole side.
Okay.
Yeah. And sort of just Anthony, just not that I want to necessarily poo-poo any ideas yet because it's still very early, but like I for some reason happen to have a frisbee from 2013 in my office, and I also have the hatch panel, and like the frisbee is significantly thicker than the hatch panel is. So I would look at the 2013 robots for inspiration, but also understand that you're trying to pick up an object that's so much smaller than this frisbee is. Team 190, woo.
It not only is like, do you have to pick it up, but you also have to like reorient it, and like it just seems really hard. And maybe there'll be some clever solution that I'm not seeing, because we're not very far into development, but
what about suction cups?
True.
Yeah, what about them?
Yeah. How about it?
The only other thought I had was if you have Velcro that goes down and sticks to it, but then you're hoping that the Velcro is sticking to your thing, and then you still need some sort of punch to get rid of it later. I don't know. That's a tough call. And is it worth it to do all that designing? I don't know.
I mean, the downside of that option, Matt, and there aren't many downsides to that option. It's simple, beautifully done. But the hook side, if you accidentally touch with the carpet with that's at least a penalty, because you're attaching to the carpet with hook.
Yeah, but who's going to catch you though?
The refs.
Well,
It's easy.
I forgot about those guys.
driving too.
But
Just
yes.
saying, Velcro holding your robot down. I remember at FLR too. I think it was 2 years ago. A team accidentally put the reversible bumpers with Velcro. They accidentally put the Velcro strip on the bottom of their bumpers, and the weight of the robot slowly got them. So they had a tough time driving that year.
So, do you think that do you guys? I'm honestly interested in your like. I really want to know what you guys think about this. So, do you think that picking up the hatch cover off the floor is like having that capability is going to be similar to being able to pick up a gear off the floor from 2017? Do you think those are like the same level of value, or do you think they're not?
I think in the average match, it's not going to be important because you're going to have enough extras that you don't need to go and pick up off the floor. I think it's probably going to be an important thing for teams to consider for later in the competition, or if they end up being at a really high level. For the average robot, it's not going to be a hugely important thing. It's something to consider for your second competition, maybe.
Well, that's kind of my thought is I think that it's not worth it, right? The gears in 2017, you had to run basically a complete lap around the field to score one. This one, you have to run a half a lap. In 2017, you needed to do, 14 gears to get the 4 rotors? I forget, 12, 14, something like that. Close. It's in that neighborhood. I'm old. I'm sorry. You need to do like 14 gears to get this. In this game, you're basically looking for 6. You want to cover up that one rocket, and anything else is gravy in higher level matches. But you want those 6. And in this year, they present the game piece to you like right in front of you in an easy, consistent orientation that you can always get. Unlike the gears from 2017 where they were coming down a chute and they were in free fall for a moment and a lot of things were unknown and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it's super important. And the other thing is that like you're not gonna be stealing gears from your opponents, or you're not gonna be stealing hatch panels from your opponents. You can't leave your bumper zone if you're on the other side of the field. So unless you have an undercarriage hatch panel pickup mechanism or something that I can't think of off the top of my head, I don't think there's nearly as much value as it was in 17.
I mean, the thing to consider if there do end up being a lot of dropped hatches, you're going to have a drive system that's going to be able to drive on those. They're going to be slick. They're going to be slippery. It's not going to be good to drive on and get stuck on and have stuck under your robot, because that can be just bad news bears.
I see it as it could be an issue. The bumpers this year have been implied that they got to be super low, right? Because you have those clearance slots right at the bottom of the cargo ship, and the clearance slots where you get the hatches from. But even though it's 3/16 of an inch, if you try and grab a couple of them, you're starting to add thickness, and then your whole drive design that's set at this level is now up just a little bit and enough that you might not be able to grab them anymore. I don't know, Dave. To answer your question, I would say it would be near a requirement for a robot that's a hatch specialist. If you're going around the field and your primary job is to drive fast and get these things stuck on as fast as possible, you want to be able to maybe play some defense. And if one falls out of a robot, you can steal it from them fast and keep going. Other than that, I have a tough time seeing the value in it too.
So, like, how can I ask a follow-up? Is that allowed, Francis?
Yeah.
Am I?
I'll allow it. Judge
okay,
Francis
thank
says
you.
yes.
Thank you. So, like, being able to pick it up off the floor, super great. But how fast? Like, there's a threshold, right? Like, if it takes you a minute to pick it up off the floor, not super worth. But if it takes you like 5 seconds, maybe worth. Like, where do you see the threshold of like where's the money? Right? Where's Value Town?
Is this like how much money would you take to like move away or whatever? It's like, would you do it for $1 million? Would you do it for $500,000 or whatever? You just keep going down.
I mean, kind of like if someone said I have a mechanism that I have a proof of concept for that can pick up a hatch cover in 1 second, and it can do it every time. It's like, all right, dope. Let's try and put it on the robot.
Yeah.
But if someone's like, if I have a mechanism that picks it up with 50% accuracy and it takes 20 seconds, like, is that worth? Like,
that's not worth. But
it has to be super good, right?
Yeah. What were you saying, Steve?
So I'm going to argue both sides of this. So on the one hand, it's interesting to see an analogous sort of thing to the undercarriage pickups from 2013, and that certainly moves you into the realm of robots in the past in a similar competition have picked up discs off the floor, and so maybe there is a point where there's a Rubicon where you realize that the differences make it infeasible, but it's not infeasible yet. The issue I have with developing it is, unlike 2017, you cannot natively load these things directly onto the floor. Like a lot of teams that got value out of the ground gear pickups in 2017, it was partially because their human player could drop one directly onto the floor, and so the team didn't have to go over and line up to whatever. When you're putting these hatch panels into the field of play, they drop down to the thing, and they stop unless the field's broken. So they stop. So you can't get it to the floor without somebody dropping it with a robot on purpose, or by accident or whatever. But like, there's a step that has to happen in between loading and you picking it up off the floor, and that wasn't there in 2017. So even a specialist, I just don't see the opportunities where you're preying on teams that don't work well in early weeks to do that. And I think it dries up way more than the gear ground pickup does in 2017.
Yeah. What Steve is talking about with the mechanics of how the chute deployment works for the hatches, that's one thing I really wish that I had access to mess around with at a kickoff event today. Not to harp on this, it's been done to death, but without those field components available for people to look at and really touch and get an idea of how much force does it take to pull it from those brushes, how likely do you think your robot is going to be dropping that? Is it at all possible, if you drop it in with any sort of extra force, that it'll bounce out or it'll fall out?
Yeah, I agree with you. The not having a field to really look at until week 0 or 1 is going to be very interesting, because now teams are forced to rely on the drawings and not really any outside source other than that. I mean, if the drive base is just a 1/8 of an inch too high, you can't get under there and clear that spot to be able to grab the hatches anymore. it's going to be a serious deal. It'll be interesting to see the teams that were able to attend kickoff and will be at week 0 will they take the time in between matches as they're loading their robots on to do some measurements, try and maybe get their human player to do some testing and try and figure some of this stuff out. Because it could become a serious issue. Hopefully it won't. I mean, we don't want to wish bad on teams. You hope that teams are fairly successful with whatever their designs are, but it has the potential to be disastrous if something is they accidentally added a 1 somewhere and now it's 1 inch instead of a ½ inch or wherever. Could be bad.
Yeah. So on this topic, let's move a little bit further. All right. So ground pickups for hatches, generally we think no. How about for cargo? Also no?
Definitely not.
Absolutely.
Definitely not.
You're not picking them off the floor?
What? Yes, of course. Of course, dude. Are you
Wait,
kidding me?
What?
Of course.
No, for like almost exactly.
Debate it
what I
in the
was
chat
talking
so you can
about
play,
with,
everybody.
with
Thank you.
Gears was the ball bounces out of the player station onto the ground. So you can have something that gets the ball directly from the human player shoot, or you can pick it up off the ground, and that usually leads teams to picking it up off the ground.
I just look at it like we've picked up a ball off the ground like a bajillion times. Like how many games where have we picked up a ball off the ground? Like it's pretty figured out.
Every ball game ever.
You spin some wheels and drive at it. Like it's not super tough, but like it's like I think you have to, but I don't think it's difficult. And not to harp on like the hatch cover so much, but like incredible difficulty and low reward compared to not much difficulty and high reward, in my opinion.
Heck, there are 12 balls that start on the floor on the field. Why would you not build a floor pickup? I mean, you've also got to look at all the balls that are going to be, cargo that's going to be kicked out of the cargo bay if you don't go with all null hatches. Like those are going straight on the ground.
Right.
I mean, you could go the bucket option and just have a bucket that catches balls exclusively from the player station. But it's a bucket.
You make it sound bad when you call it a bucket.
What if we put some rollers on the top of the bucket, and then we've got a bucket with rollers?
You aim the rollers at the ground and then suck the ball off the ground with your roller bucket. Sounds like a pretty good idea.
It's like half the robots in 2014. You just have a bucket that tilts down and then a bucket that tilts up.
That was basically the pack goat, right? So I mean, like
you're gonna tell me that these teams made mistakes in previous years and didn't learn their lesson? No.
This might not be the year for a bucket.
We'll find out.
But
go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. I was just gonna say I think that ground pickup is super important for the cargo, but how you interface the ground pickup with whatever mechanism you have that scores the cargo is interesting. I think that's a more interesting question. Because I think like trying to combine the mechanism that scores the cargo and scores the hatches is a cool move, but like how you get the game pieces into your mechanism that scores is interesting.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the 30-inch extension rules.
Yeah,
we have not had that much extension for a while, and when the ball is whatever it is, 13-inch diameter, you can just your whole robot goes outside of your frame perimeter, and there's your cargo thing, and it exists out here.
I'm just picturing some sort of giraffe butt reaching out and picking up.
Oh, or yeah, what I'm thinking is like the Goonies, right? Where the guy's got like the scissor lift boxing glove in his like trench coat.
Your whole thing, shoes.
Yeah, your whole thing kind of goes. Yeah. No, but really though, your whole thing could actually reach out if it had to. I don't know, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, Steve, because like 30 inches is huge. It's like a whole robot, right? Like, and I was doing some geometry sketches just to look at like, how big is the ball, compared to my robot? How tough is it going to be to get over the bumpers and stuff like that? And like, you don't need to reach that far. Like 30 inches is massive. I don't know. Do you guys like
for the end game?
I think they're looking at forklifts.
I think you're right about that.
Well, but the extension rules are all different. Are they different this year in the HAB? I can't remember all the rules.
I think they're all the same.
But so the extension rules are interesting, but also this is a strange year for ground clearancey things. Last year you had to get up a similar ramp, but that was it. This year you have the rails that corral the balls in the area that starts next to the hab platform thing, and that's the 1 inch tall or whatever 1 3/4, I don't remember, inch tall berm from 2016. It's the same steel tube, so you have that for weird ground clearance stuff.
Mhm.
And the height of the inset part of the cargo ship and the loading station is 8 inches, so your bumpers can be almost 3 inches off the ground if you want to do it that way and just get them barely under the thing. So there's some upper and lower bounds to the outside driving portion, theoretical driving portion of your robot that are unusual.
All right, so okay. I'm gonna say this. I don't know. I just thought of it. So because you can go 30 inches outside your robot this year, right? And because there's no protected zone around the rocket, right? Let's say that you come to the decision you want to reach over somebody to score, right? You want to be able to reach over on the robot and put a ball or a hatch into play, right? Does that mean that maybe...
Don't say boxing glove.
No. maybe it's an arm game, too. Like last year looked like an arm game, but was not an arm game. It was.
You mean kind of like how 225 did it?
No, I'm thinking like Pink, or like I assume 330 is going to build an arm, because they always do, right? But like, oh come on, you don't think so, Dave? You don't think it's an arm? What about Arm Evader?
Yes, of course.
Yes,
Definitely gonna build an arm. How many times do we have to do this, dude? 2 for 2, baby.
Yeah. No, but it could be an arm game.
I think
right?
they'll probably paint their robot blue and yellow. Maybe, I don't know. We'll
Who
see.
knows? But yeah, no, but I maybe it's an arm game. Maybe it's a game where an arm is not the worst idea, because you can go 30 inches is a lot, like you said. So you could have an arm. Yeah, if for those of you who don't know, 330 is going to retire at the end of this year. This is their last year doing first. They have a whole post about it on their website. Read it. Go ahead and check it out on Chief Delphi or Facebook, and you'll get the full details. But it's unfortunate, but they are going out the way they want to go out, which is good. So, but I think 30 inches is the most we've had in a long, long time. Basically, the most we've had since they've cared about how far you extend outside of your robot, except like the 80-inch cylinder rule from 2008, right? So, what do you guys think about arms?
I kind of want to see 971 put that arm on their robot, and then use that arm. They just place it on the top platform and cantilever the rest of their robot up onto the thing. Just
you mean from this past year,
baby? I put stuff up, and then I put my whole self up.
I mean, we did look at last year and say it's not a shooting game, and there were plenty of shooting robots. So maybe it is an arm game. Ugh.
Maybe it's not. Just saying. Just saying. Maybe it's not.
Maybe it's not.
Right.
I know. I think I think an arm is interesting. It's I think there could be value in the reach. I just don't see too many scenarios where you have to reach.
All right, I got it. Hot take. Here we go. All right, Pink team from many years with their telescoping arm, right? That basically did a 180. Could you sit between the cargo ship and the platforms and just suck in or grab the cargo, spin it around and dump it in, and just go back and forth?
Between the cargo ship?
Yeah. I don't know the distances, but that's, as we're starting to talk about arms, that's the only application that I can think of where you would want to have that much reach. Maybe you just sit there in between the two and you grab them and go, spin them around. I don't know.
Well, a pink arm, you could actually do kind of what you're saying. You could make a cycle where you don't have to ever turn around by having your arm go from here and going over top of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
You just outtake them into each individual opening, and then you have a specialist that's going around. What's the polycarb called?
A hatch.
a hatch. You go around with a hatch specialist that's just closing them in for you as you're doing it.
Yeah. Here's a question.
I don't know. Throwing it out there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit off topic of arms, so I can wait a little bit to ask it if we're not done with talking about arms yet.
All arms all the time, but go ahead.
Are we going to see shuttling of game pieces this year, like we saw a lot of in, it's kind of a mama bird, baby bird thing. We saw it with some of the gears. We saw it with power cubes. Is that something we're going to see with cargo this year? I don't think is that something we would necessarily see with the hatches, but is that something we'll see with cargo?
I don't think. I mean, my first inclination is no, only if I'm gonna try to, without seeing how the game plays out in real life, and kind of taking my heuristics from other games, this game is more like last year than most years because you have a lot of short cycles. So I think that a team would be more, if they're trying to get cargo only, they're better off just going and getting the piece of cargo from the floor area, or just getting them up off the loading zone from the floor than having someone shuttle it over. It's not going to be significantly faster for that, in my thought.
I think my initial prediction would be maybe a similar amount to the 2017 and 2018, where I definitely saw it. I saw it happen, but what felt like to me exceptionally rarely. It's so often, once you've done the work to get the game piece into your robot, you're going to get it. The getting it out is less work, and you can probably put it in a scoring position most times more effectively than you can have another robot pick it up and do that, just because the pickup's harder. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, I don't know.
I would say probably not.
Yeah.
For all of the reasons Steve mentioned. I also think that to add to that, last year there could be value if you had a good collector and you needed to win the scale and you had a scale robot, but you weren't the scale robot, so you take the cube and then your buddy puts it up for you. But I think there's enough low-hanging fruit, at the bottom of stuff, like low level, where it could work. Where you just do it yourself.
Right.
There's not. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
And there isn't the weird part of 2018 for this was, at a certain point, there were 5 or 6 robots in the world where you'd trust to start to continue to put cubes on a really rickety scale. And this year it's, well, can you put it in the same hole that you've always been able to put it into? Why don't you do that? Let's do that. Simpler.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot of people in the chat talking about starvation of game pieces, right? Do you think, or even not even just starvation, but stealing game pieces, right? This kind of goes off of our discussion about picking up hatch panels off the floor. Do you think people are going to go, because you can't be outside your bumper zone on the opponent's half of the field, but you could still possess a game object. So you could, I guess, push a hatch panel on the floor, or you could also just roll a ball with your bumpers. Do you think that that's something that ever is going to happen? And if so, where? My initial thought is no, and probably never, but what do you guys think?
I see a lot of design effort being used to optimize or to really use your extra extension space to do pickups and stuff. So you wouldn't really be optimized for doing it on the opposite end of the field, which would only matter in a certain number of matches. And if you're good at anything, then you're dealing with scoring so often that you're optimized to this zone where you can expand. And I don't know. It seems like a lot of stuff to get to that point. But, if you have something that fits entirely within your bumpers that does the stealing aspect of it, I also think it isn't worth it.
Oh, I see. Well, do you think it's more worth than playing defense? I know you hate defense. Do you think it's more worth to go steal the opponent's balls than it is to start hitting people? You've
like more worth to steal it with a specialized, not over the bumper inside the robot intake.
No,
that's,
you don't
like,
even need
just for
that. Just use your bumper. Just hit the ball across the field with your robot.
that's super easy.
I just said it,
I
so
think
it's gotta be
we'll see it.
easy, right? Boom.
I think I don't think so, because I just don't, like, I don't see like there's not that many incentives for you to cross the field, and there's only going to be like one robot on the other side of the field at any time, like on your alliance at any time anyways, right? And I think that the chances that that robot is in close proximity to a piece of cargo or a hatch, like that they can snipe it, I think that's an even like lower percentage. So I just think like the opportunities to do that will not be there. And like without the opportunity, I don't think it's worth like building a strategy or a robot around doing something like that.
I don't think we're going to see it outside of the first 30 seconds of teleop. Depending on what your opponents are putting into the cargo ship, if they're putting all cargo, or if they don't put all, or if they put a mix of some of the things and they don't get hatches on all of the bays, you're going to have cargo rolling around on the floor just over the center line. It's not going to take much for you to go over there, bump it over, and score it into a cargo bay that just has a hatch on it and needs cargo. I mean, if you're running an auto strat where you're putting all of your hatches onto the spaceship, and there's cargo right there, hell yeah, I'd turn right around, grab the cargo that's sitting there just on the other side of the center line, and go score it. I think if it's a matter of convenience at that point, right? But we're not going to see it significantly during gameplay. It'll happen in the first 30 seconds of teleop, but not in endgame.
I think you're totally right, but like if a ball has fallen out of the opponent's cargo ship and rolled onto my side of the field and is right in front of where I need to score my cargo, like I don't really consider that sniping a game piece, right? Like that's just me scoring a game piece that's in front of my scoring zone.
Well, but we'll see like the nose of the cargo ship, the two cargo that have to start there, and you'd have to cap them for them not to fall out. Like those will be rolling out onto the field in especially early matches. And you'll have alliances that have the preloaded portal hatch things. They won't have touched those during autonomous. So there's opportunities ripe for the taking early in the year. But the human player isn't just going to put another portal thing down if you're the one waiting for the hatch. So I agree. I don't see it past the early part.
And my mic is muted. All right, there we go. All right, cool. Yes, fair point, Steve. So, I think we're starting to sort of wind up a little bit here. Let's move on to our overall take here, right? Like we started off talking about the Sandstorm and how new that was. We talked about a lot of different parts of the game. What are you guys' overall thoughts on this year's game? Are you excited? You scared? Are you freaked? Do you think it's good or bad? What do you guys think? Let's start with Ruth and go around the horn.
I think this is one of the best games we've seen in the modern era. Kind of similar to Power Up, it's going to be your game to lose. You're going to need to play your best game every single match. You're going to need to make sure your alliance partners play the best game every single match. It's like in the Olympics. If you don't get a perfect 10, you're not number one.
Interesting. Okay. Steve, what are your thoughts?
This is a game where I'm really intrigued to see how playoffs play out, and I am almost uninterested in qualification matches. Like the inherent devaluing of a lot of defensive strategies in the playoffs is great, because too often playoffs just turn into like this one hinge point of defense. But I will be interested to see how teams work their playoff strategy to get just the right number of points that they need to win. But qualifications, I think it's going to be like 2008, where I just see the good robots. They get the ranking point like mostly by themselves, and they do it every single match. And all right, we'll just keep going.
Yeah, but so somebody in chat, his name is Sicknarf _KDog, actually asked, Should you just build a defensive robot? Steve, answer.
I refuse to answer this question.
Okay, well, there we go. Dave, what's your take on the game?
Go Hawks. I
Go
think we're gonna.
no,
I think
not
we're
that
yeah,
game.
I think
the robot game.
Sorry. I mean, I like it. I don't think it's like my favorite game, but it's definitely not my least favorite game. I I think that having to manipulate two very different game pieces is interesting. And I'm really intrigued to see how teams solve the big giant step problem. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to seeing. I think that like from a defensive match strategy standpoint, it's kind of meh. Like you just kind of play your game, right? Like I brought up 2015 in the beginning because I definitely think that a lot of matches in this year will look like two different alliances playing their own game and not interacting at all. And so I'm a little disappointed with that, but like I think there are some aspects of this game that will be compelling.
Yeah, I have an interesting. I agree with you guys. I don't think it's necessarily going to be the best game, one of the best games in the modern era. I think that Stronghold, but that's because Stronghold is the best, and it's like my opinion, much better than most of the games that's been around it. It's going to be hard to top it. But that being said, I'm excited for the game. I'm interested to see it. My webcam freaked out for a second, but we're back. All right.
Oh no,
no.
Francis
right.
has stopped working.
Yep,
so,
it's okay. Anyway, no, we're back. All right. So, yeah. I mean, I think it. Yeah. Anyway, I like. Sorry. That frozen picture of my face is a pretty accurate mental picture of myself as well. But at least you can still hear me. Hold on here. Let me see if I just do this. Anyway, so if I just change some stuff around, we can fix it. But anyway, I like the game. I think it's going to be cool. I'm excited to see how people decide to climb the platform because I don't know how you're going to do that. 100% don't know how it's going to work. But I think it'll be neat. So Matt, cover me while I fix this, and also talk about your thing.
Touchdown by the Seahawks. There we go. That's better. My reaction, it's funny. My initial gut reaction when I was watching was this game's going to be awesome. And as the day has gone on and I've thought about it more and I've talked to a lot of my friends in the community, I'm starting to realize that this game has the potential to be super awesome, but it also has the potential to have a lot of robots that look very, very similar. And I don't know if I like that or not. I don't know if that bothers me. I just it seems like picking up the portals is going to be similar designs. It seems like picking up the cargo is going to be similar designs. And the only unique part is going to come from how are they dealing with the platforms, like what Dave was saying earlier. So I don't know. I think it has the potential to be a super cool game, but it also has the potential to be the alliances that win competitions are ones that are able to find their third pick that is doing the best at whatever they don't do the best at. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's definitely a unique game. The design is kind of cool. We haven't seen anything similar to it except the Stronghold towers. So it's got a unique element to it that can be really exciting. The driver part with the Sandstorm is going to be super interesting right off the bat of every match. That part's going to be really, really cool to see. So, yeah, I guess we'll see. I'm kind of on the fence. I'm in the middle somewhere. Not sure yet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sounds legit. Lots of unknowns. And I guess the one thing I'll say is, for sure, in my book, the last 4 years or 5 years from 16, 17, 18, 19 have all been good games. And it's been a long time since I've been able to say that reliably, right? If you were a freshman in 2016 in high school and you're graduating this year, you're
lucky.
You're lucky. Yeah, you got 4 really good games. 4 of the top 8 games in FIRST history have all come in the last 4 years. So, I think there's still a lot more to see for sure, but I'm hopeful for this game. I think you guys are hopeful too. So we'll see how it goes.
I would agree with you, Francis. The first has props to them. These past few years, they have upped their game and things have gotten more consistently better, I guess is the best way to put it. Like things they've been good games regardless of the actual outcome. So it's neat to watch.
Yeah. So you know what that means? We're due for another Recycle Rust next year, I guess, right? So anyway, thank you. Yikes. Thank you to everybody for watching us tonight. Thank you to Ruth and Steve and Matt and Dave for coming on and talking robots with me and everybody here. Remember, if you like what you see, remember to follow us here on Twitch. If you really like us a lot, think about subscribing to us here on Twitch. It helps us out. Make sure that we can do all the live events that we do. I felt like this off-season was barely an off-season at all because I ended up traveling to 4 or 5 other events to do RSN shows across the West Coast and other places, Indian IRI. And so that's all part of the things that we do on top of these, web shows. For now, though, we're going to see you guys in a few weeks. Our next episode of GameSense is not going to be until after the build season. We got teams to run. We got robots to build. We got work to have and school to go to. Or if you work at a school, both of those things. So I hope everybody has a fantastic build season. I hope you all get plenty of sleep, are well rested, and we're going to see you the Wednesday following the week. So the last bag day will be on a Tuesday. Will be the week following Wednesday. Just follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We'll tell you then. All right. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching, and hope you guys have a great week and a great build season. Bye bye for now, everybody.
Go Hawks!
27th.
Go Hawks!
Go Hawks!
Go Hawks!